For the past few years, we can easily notice that any Android flagship we buy is performance-wise way behind Apple flagship for the year. Let us today dive into why it is a thing and how can the Android ecosystem too be treated fairly with equally high-performing SoCs that have been powering iPhone for generations. Let us break it down and go through the history of the processor development. Apple used to source its processors from other firms, just like how major Android OEMs source their processors from Qualcomm or MediaTek. Before it all started to change in 2010, Apple launched the iPad with A4, which was the company's first in-house SoC. And slowly, by 2012, Apple shifted from licensing the ARM design to licensing just the ARM instruction set, making the A6 the first Apple-designed SoC. Still, these processors were either equally or less powerful than the ARM counterpart the Android OEMs use. Thus, we still hear about the prevailing myth that Apple phones are underpowered. The thing is, they were, till 2012. In 2013, Apple came into the limelight when they released their first 64-bit processor, the A7 chip, which was used in the iPhone 5s. That processor caught everyone from Samsung to Qualcomm unaware, and in many ways they are still struggling to catch up. Until that point, Apple and Qualcomm were both shipping the 32-bit ARM v7 processors, and Qualcomm was the one actually leading with their Snapdragon 800 platform. It used an in-house Cray 400 core along with the Adreno 330 GPU. Life was good for Qualcomm when Apple suddenly announced a 64-bit ARM v8 CP, taking everyone by surprise. Qualcomm had nothing equally performing. Qualcomm's executives even thought that it was just a marketing gimmick, which they later obviously had to learn that it wasn't. Fun fact, coincidentally, the iPhone 5s launched in 2013, which had the A7 chip, was still supported by Apple's iOS 12, which came out in 2018. That shows how far ahead the future proofing was for iPhone compared to its Android counterpart. Qualcomm then launched the Snapdragon 810 in 2014, again a 32-bit ARM with 4 Cortex A57 cores and 4 Cortex A53 cores. But in that same year, Apple improved upon its 64-bit architecture and announced the A8, its second generation in-house 64-bit CPU. It finally took 2 years for Qualcomm to be able to announce its first generation in-house 64-bit CPU, the Snapdragon 820 in March 2015, with its custom Cairo CPU core. The same year, in September, Apple released its third generation of 64-bit in-house CPU, the A9 in the iPhone 6s, and this suddenly made Qualcomm 2 generations behind Apple, which is what continues till date. In 2016, Qualcomm's offering was from ARM again, but with a twist. The ARM had created a new licensing program which allowed its more trusted partners and early access to latest CPU architecture and even some measure of customization. This resulted in the Cairo 280 CPU core. Spec-wise, Snapdragon 835 is set to use 8 Cairo 280 cores. For the Snapdragon 835, Qualcomm moved the announcement from spring to winter, meaning the 835 was announced after the Apple A10 Fusion and the iPhone 7. But again, as expected, it was still behind the A10 and in cases even the A9 chips. This lag continues today when we compare the latest Snapdragon 865 to the Apple's A13 Bionic chip, which are 2 ahead of their Snapdragon counterpart. The reason for the even higher differences this year is due to 2 major changes in Apple's architecture. Now, since the A11 Bionic chip, Apple can harness the power of all of the low and high powered cores together at once, which Snapdragon or any other counterpart haven't been able to reproduce. Apart from that, Apple shifted to the 7nm architecture with the A12 Bionic and is going to shift to 5nm for A14, which gives it a huge edge compared to Snapdragon 845. Now comes the question, what can help the performance of the Android smartphone boost as a whole? And for that, let us jump into a similar race in the PC world. Intel has always had a monopoly in the market when it comes to processors in the desktop and laptop sold worldwide. But that monopoly led to Intel slacking off in its developmental processes, and thus in early 2017, AMD broke Intel's stage by bringing in the Ryzen platform and the Threadripper platform. This is something I have discussed in detail in the video linked right here, and that is what Snapdragon needs right now. Another competitor in the Android OEM or SoC space, which would have the capability to break Qualcomm's monopoly in the business today with its higher performance, and that in turn could be the most helpful thing for the masses. The only 2 manufacturers that could do this today would be HiSilicon, Huawei's Kirin processors, or Exynos, Samsung processors. And if these manufacturers open up their processors today to be licensed to other Android OEMs, Snapdragon would have to work even harder just to boost ahead of this bubbling competition to suppress it, which would lead to faster processors for us, the masses. and may even have the potential to compete toe-to-toe with Apple processors, thus giving both the sides a good bump in research and development. Thank you for tuning in. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe for more content to come, and click the bell icon to be notified of the same.